Hello and welcome to the Race to Speak Up podcast. As always, I'm your host, Devin Moore. Today's guest is Ssanyu Lukoma. Ssanyu is a teenage entrepreneur, author, and public speaker. In 2018, at 13 years old, she founded Brown Kids Read, a nonprofit organization dedicated to motivating all children, but especially children of color, to read more diverse literature. Since then, she has created an outline and pop-up bookstore called the Brown Reads Bookshelf and hosts a podcast called the Book Junkie. Most recently, she wrote a children's picture book entitled Suubi Sunny Smile, which comprises prominent heritage and dental hygiene themes, but most importantly, has a vital anti-bullying message. She was compelled to write a story featuring Suubi, a main character of color, whose inspiring journey will show young readers that what makes us unique can be our greatest strength. Her ultimate goal is to inspire and motivate others to leave a positive impact on the world. Hi, Ssanyu, how are you doing?
I am awesome. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited to come and talk to you today.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to be here too. Let's get into this conversation. Why don't you tell me about Brown Kids Read?
Yes, so as you stated, I started Brown Kids Read when I was 13 years old in 2018. And the interesting thing about it was it actually was not supposed to be a nonprofit at first. It started out because I actually had a party entertainment business called Pathways Entertainment, where I would do face painting and dress up as different princesses and go to birthday parties. And one of my best friends, her mother, is actually the author of a children's book called Victoria Ann Phoenix is a Real Princess. So we partnered together to create this party entertainment business. And through that, I met two other authors, they're twins, named Jordan and Joelle Hernandez, who decided to write a book called Twin Tales. And they were launching it at a Barnes & Noble that was local to all of us. So they asked me to come and help coordinate the event and make it a really fun spectacle for people to come, enjoy the stories, but they wanted to make a huge deal of diversity and to really push that out into the community, especially because a lot of kids where I'm from don't have access to those books, although I live in a very diverse community. So a lot of the things that we're given in school, they have white main characters. The story centralizes around things we can't particularly relate to. I remember being younger and reading stories about girls with long blonde hair and they could just brush their hair and flip out of bed in the morning and go to school. I'm like, hey, that's not my story. So
Yeah.
we decided to bring an event called Brown Kids Read to the Barnes & Noble. And that was really a pivotal point in my life because that's when I fell in love with helping other people see the value in diverse literature. And I've been an avid reader since I was 4 years old. So diverse books, reading, that was never a problem for me. I eat books, like I love them so much. And sharing that joy with younger kids at that event who got to come see main characters on the front cover of books that look just like them. They got to read stories about people who had the same ethnic background. That experience was very exciting. So that's where the idea of Brown Kids Read came about. And at that event, we actually had authors come do book signings. We had a huge display of diverse books. I did a character performance as Victoria Ann Phoenix from the author's book. Her name is Kenya Travis. And we also had crafts. So it was a great experience for everybody involved. And in December of 2018, I officially turned Brown Kids Read into a nonprofit organization because I knew that I wanted to replicate that event for other people and other communities.
That's amazing. I love that. And I love that background story. It's so interesting how you went from like one thing to another. And you're really, you're really right when it comes to these books in schools that are really just talking about, things that we as Black people can't necessarily relate to, especially when it's like, like as you're saying, when it's just a blonde haired girl, straight hair, we kind of can't relate to that. So yeah. So so tell me about some of the books that you read when you were younger. Like what were your favorite books?
Ooh, good question. So I actually have a book. It's called Rosa by Nikki Giovanni, and it's still in my house. I've had it I don't even know the amount of years. And it's basically Rosa Parks' story. But part of the reason why I fell in love with that story was also because of the illustrations. And it it's just so immersive. It gives an experience like you're actually there, the book itself. I wish I had it here to show you, but I don't. So that's when I really fell in love with books. That's the one book I really remember. I also remember reading a lot about Ruby Bridges. So Ruby Bridges was a very inspirational person in my life. She taught me the value in being courageous and not letting other people's opinions about you, whether they be from preconceived notions or misinterpreting actions that you've done. Don't let those things affect you, because at the end of the day, you're going to be who you are, and those people cannot dictate what you do. Like those pictures where she's walking through the mobs of the racist people who are holding up those signs and going up the front steps of her school building, those images, even being depicted in illustrations in the book, still were very impactful. And I know that they were impactful for a larger audience for my age group as well. And then as I got a little bit older, I got really into dystopian novels like Hunger Games, Divergent, Maze Runner, The Giver, all of those. I've read them inside and out, cover to cover. I've watched all the movies. I'm a huge fan of dystopian literature. And that's when I got into chapter books. So I don't know if you can see here, but I have like a whole bunch of books. And this is just my desk. We have like 4 other bookshelves in the house, full of
Oh.
a lot of books. And it's good because of the Brown Reads bookshelf, I have my store, so I get to read my inventory too, which is awesome. But basically, a lot of these are dystopian books. Then, as I got into high school, I really delved into contemporary novels. And as soon as I started the Book Junkie podcast, I'm reading a lot more contemporary. I'm reading some fantasy as well. I don't know if it's here. Okay, but the sequel is here. Children of Virtue and Vengeance, right there. That is the sequel to my favorite fantasy novel, Children of Blood and Bone. And that is another one that was a huge hit in my life because I hadn't read a lot of fantasy novels with Black girl main characters where the story isn't about them with the struggles of being Black. Sometimes I just can't take the Black trauma stories and I just need to step away from it and read something lighthearted where Black people can just exist in their Blackness, which I enjoy. So yeah, those are a couple of the titles that really impacted me.
That's cool. Because you're kind of different from me though. Because I remember when I was younger, I kind of was reading more like way younger. I was really just focused more on like Go Diego books. I remember those were my favorite during that time. But I mean, as I did get older, I was really just more so into science fiction. But I love how you're really able to like how you really dove into all these different types of books that really give you that knowledge. Because reading really is knowledge. Like it really is key in so many different things. It's empowering, you know? And so to have those books about, you know, young Black girls or young Black guys, you know, and reading that and learning from that and seeing someone that looks like us, that's so perfect for just very young children to really like grow up with and learn about. Or maybe even like people that don't look like us, that like, you know, different races is what I mean. So like if it's like Asian or Hispanic or other, or maybe even different religions, you know, different stuff like that. I love how we can work towards reading that, but it's just like when it comes to schools, you really don't see that. And so I'm so, yeah, I know you're about to say, yeah, like it's so true. It's so weird. I remember when I was in like second, no, I was like in like kind of just kindergarten and then going up to like actually to like 8th grade, if we're really gonna be honest. And I really just see white books. Though like what, you know how they give like a list of books and then it's like those 2 Black authors,
Yeah.
and that's what I naturally went to. So like I would kind of I remember I read James Baldwin,
Mhm.
which was pretty good. He's a very interesting person. I like how he was really able to convey himself in that book. I forgot the name, sorry, but it's a James Baldwin book. So I really like how you're able to work through not only reading but work through your own books to really educate others. And now, so like you said, you are an author. Do you want to tell us more about Suubi's Sunny Smile?
Yes, I actually have a copy right here. I have a copy back there as well. I always keep it up. But this is Suubi Sunny Smile. I have a lot of things to say about it. First of all, it's inspired by my younger brother. He just turned 11 this month, and it is it has a lot of parts of me inside. First of all, Subi's main problem throughout the story is that he's being bullied for the gap in his two front teeth. I have one too. And I took a lot of experiences from when I was younger in elementary school. And when people tried to bully me for my gap, I don't remember ever actually being impacted or upset about it because I'm like, really? You don't have anything better to say? Like, if you really want to argue, if you really want to, insult me, be a little more creative. I think we all see that I have a gap. But at the same time, a gap isn't something to be ashamed of. And that's what I'm trying to get across in the story, because the overarching message is not just that having a gap is okay. It's that everybody has something that they're insecure about. And you don't need to feel insecure about it because it's actually your superpower. And by the end of the story, so he realizes that his smile is his superpower. He's a very bright boy. He loves going on adventures. His favorite color is yellow. He loves making people smile and laugh. And although he has a gap in his teeth, that doesn't take away from his smile. It adds to it because it makes him unique. So that is the aspect of, especially cultural appreciation, because my dad's whole side of the family has a gap. And I wanted to make sure I added some of that into there. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about dental hygiene because I've had braces, I've had retainers, I've had spacers. I've spent a lot of time in the orthodontist office. So I wanted to give a little shout out to my dentists. And then the anti-bullying aspect. So that is the biggest part of Suubi Sunny Smile. It's the main message that I want to get across to young readers. And I've had my own experiences with bullying. The one that really was the impetus for this story was a situation I had on my first day of school in first grade, brand new school. I went to a private school beforehand and I switched to public school. I walked onto the bus. I was 6 years old. I went towards the middle of the bus and there were these two girls sitting in a seat. I asked them if I could sit there, and one of them said, "You're too dark to sit with us." And I was taken aback because I'd never experienced anything like that before. And I was a little bit upset because I'd never experienced anything like that before. Thankfully, the girl sitting next to her, her friend, was what I like to call an anti-bully, which is also represented in the story. And she reprimanded her friend. She said, "That's not okay. You can come sit with me." And during that bus ride, I made a new friend. And I'm so thankful for her because without her, I feel like I would have been sitting alone on the bus for a long time. And even afterward, I went to my mom. We had a discussion with the principal, the girl's parents, and everything like that. But I found that dynamic of the victim, the bully, and the anti bully very, very impactful, and a message that I wanted to spread for a lot of younger kids and future generations. So that's part of the reason why I wrote Suubi Sunny Smile.
When you and first, of course, I want to say I'm really sorry that you even went through that. But something that comes to mind when you say anti-bully, like the anti-bully, is being an upstander. That's what an upstander is. They support the victim of bullying in their situation. That friend supported you in that situation, in that disgusting situation. Like, how did that affect your mental?
So I always knew that I was dark, and I love my blackness. I love my skin, and I love being able to stand out in a crowd. And I wasn't so much sad that she commented on my skin and said I was too dark, because I knew that wasn't reality and you can't really be too dark to sit next to someone, like she was going to catch blackness or something. I don't know. Very strange. But at the same time, I was just in a state of shock because I didn't know anybody at that school whatsoever. I had no friends, and it wasn't like I was expecting an abundance of kindness, but I was expecting basic human decency, and she violated that before I even reached the school property. So I would say that I was more in a state of shock as opposed to sadness. I was also angry at first, and then I was relieved because her friend next to her decided to take me on as a friend and treat me like an actual person. So those emotions were very quick, especially for a 6 year old to be dealing with. And the reason why I know that was such an impactful situation is because I remember it so vividly. I remember walking onto the bus, having that interaction. I remember being in the car with my mom the next day and telling her what happened, all of that. And those scenarios happen to kids every single day, and they don't know how to deal with it. A lot of the time they feel like if they go to an authority figure, they're going to be called a snitch, or if they talk about it to someone, they might get ridiculed for it. So Suubi Sunny Smile really creates a vessel for younger kids to feel like they're not alone, A, and to B, deal with it in a healthy way. In the story, Suubi goes and talks to his father about it, which isn't the same as a lot of kids see. Their teachers tell them, come talk to us, which they may be uncomfortable with. So I purposely had Subi go to his father, and I wanted to represent a positive and healthy relationship between a young Black boy and his Black father, because that is misrepresented and underrepresented in books, especially the American publishing industry.
Yeah.
But on top of that, Subi was able to have a productive conversation with his father about his heritage, the importance of his self worth, and how he'll be able to take steps in the future to feel more confident about himself. So when I was on that bus, I knew that was going to be an impactful part of my life, and I'm glad that it manifested itself into a positive situation that has now helped hundreds of kids through a picture book. So, yeah.
I'm happy that you're able to make that change, that necessary change that we need. Because, like you're saying, like when it comes to bullying, it's the effects of it is long lasting, but on top of that, you can remember each and every moment, even if it happened like 20 years ago. I know with my bullying experiences happened 4 years ago, so this is like in 2018. I these three white boys put my face onto racist and disgusting images, and I could literally go into detail about the time, where I was, the time, how I felt. I literally, like, something came over me. I did not at all feel good. I was sick to my stomach. I was so terrified. Only thing I knew to do was go and speak to my mom and my dad about it so that we could go to the school and tell them about it. But, like, my only real support system was my family, but we, just in general, stuff like what happened to us shouldn't even be going on. Like, what Black child would want that to happen to them? You're still learning. Like, we are developing and we are still learning, so having that a part of our childhood, that is traumatizing, and that will stay with you for the longest time. It makes you fear things. It makes you be on the like
Defensive.
defensive. Sorry, that's what I was about to say. Yeah, defensive side. And you know you may automatically start seeing certain types of people in another way because of the fact that there was those certain people who, you know came for you and were hating on you and tried to destroy that part of you. And something else that I also kind of understood within I'm not trying to take too much attention off of you, because I really do want to acknowledge what you're saying, but I'm just saying, like, I've also noticed that, like, when it comes to my bullying experiences, those three boys weren't just, um feeling threatened by my melanin. They also saw that I was an intelligent Black person. And that's what also got them. That's what also made them so scared of me, I guess. I guess we'll say that word. And that's why they felt that they had the power to go behind the screen and use that type of power to create all these different images. And so many people go through that. So many people go through that. And that's what led me to starting my Race to Speak Up organization. And so I can understand that, that passion towards anti-bullying, that passion towards helping others speak up about their bullying experiences and helping others relate, because telling your story, it helps others relate. So, it's so good to really just have that. And then also schools should just have books like Suubi Sunny Smile, because I would love to see that when I was at that age.
Exactly. And what you're saying about them being threatened by you being an intelligent Black person, I resonate with that so much because I've had experiences, especially online, where people want to be screen gangsters and pretend that they would say this stuff to me in real life.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the reason why I know they want to argue with me online, especially if they're the ones who started this, most of the time regarding a racial situation, whether it be about Black Lives Matter, whether it be about speaking up against police brutality, whatever it is, they decide to say something negative about that to me, I'm going to say something back. And most of the time, I'm going to come with facts, not opinions, and I'm going to destroy you in the argument. Because if you come to me with a preconceived notion that I'm going to be this ignorant person just because of my skin tone, and I know a lot more than you think, you're going to be stunned, you're going to be shook. You're not going to know what to do with yourself. So that's the mindset that a lot of people have when they go into these bullying situations as a bully. And they want to hurt other people because they're hurt. And that's something I see with a lot of people who go out of their way to be mean to other people. That is another message I'm trying to get across with Suubi Sunny Smile. It's going out of your way to be kind, going out of your way to show kindness and compassion and showing other people that you care. Because there's nothing wrong with caring about other people. And bullies try to go out of their way to show people that they don't care because somebody has hurt them and they're just putting it onto another person in a state of being upset with what happened to them. So I definitely relate to you and like what you're saying about them not knowing that you're an intelligent Black person. And, there's just so much hate in this world and people take it out in the wrong places, man. And, putting it on people just because of their skin color is so damaging, not only for the people that it affects in terms of who they're trying to bully, but also for them. Because after a while, it eats away and it keeps eating away at you. I mean, if you don't focus on yourself and learn to have confidence in yourself, then of course you're going to go and try to hurt someone else because you're insecure about what's going on inside. So, overall, for anybody who is showing bullying behavior, just make sure that you take a second to look at what's going on inside because most of the time you have something going on in your heart and in your spirit that you haven't dealt with. And that's why you're lashing out at people.
Sanyu, that is some really good advice because it really is so true. Like I'm just kind of thinking about how I don't like going on a lot of these certain like social media apps because all it is just people fighting and bickering at each other. And then when they bring real controversial things up, like Black Lives Matter, and then like just there's always those people that just say the most random and like dumbest things or the completely rude things that they don't even understand that's opposing to Black Lives Matter or all of these other things, that that shows you that one, they don't understand. That shows you that two, these people need more knowledge. And it shows you three, that because you understand, I know with me, I'm probably going to want to educate them. But the thing is, I also know that they probably not going to listen and they're probably going to keep going on and on and on with all this negativity and hate. And, one way to combat hate is with kindness, but this lack of understanding and this lack of wanting to understand is it's so detrimental and it's such an obstacle in having connection, creating unity, because the first step is having that conversation, but you have to be open to each other and open to listening. That's such a big part. And so I really want to talk about Black Lives Matter with you, because I know this will probably be really good. I want to hear your thoughts on things. So oh, well, actually, the first thing I want to ask you is, did you ever go to a protest?
I did, and I actually spoke at one. It was, I believe it was 2020. I'm pretty sure it was in the summer of 2020. I read a poem called They Slice the Air by D. Galloway, but it was so cool because I got to do it with a loudspeaker and there were a whole sea of people there, and it was just awesome. They Slice the Air is about how Black people, it's about the Black American experience starting from the slave ships to Black Lives Matter. And it really goes through the first couple of lines. I'll actually say the first couple of lines to give you an illustration of what it's about. It says, songs of sorrow, songs of faith and hope and love. They slice the air, and in their wake, sorrow is lifted, faith renewed, hope restored, love is lifted, all because they slice the air, and in their wake, sorrow is lifted. So it's about Negro spirituals and how music has really taken us from point A to point B. And that was really powerful, especially in terms of Black Lives Matter, because there's so much controversy around Black Lives Matter and people don't really understand what it's about. But Black people, like, oh my gosh, the history in this country for Black individuals, Blackness, there have been so many different ways that we've been pushed down, and people have attempted to take us 10 steps back when we're going 3 steps forward. I just feel like that poem really exemplified our experience here. And I did say that at a protest. It was a great experience. I got to meet so many amazing people. And it was run by a community service organization called Rays of Hope, which I'm a part of now, which is awesome. So yeah, they do a lot of stuff like that, especially speaking out on important topics like Black Lives Matter.
That's really cool. I wish I was there. I would have loved to hear you do that. I mean, I know you shared the poem now, which is a really good poem, but it's just like, that's also something that we need, or at least I just feel we need in general, is also hearing poems like that, and at least just trying to convey to others, or properly conveying to others, this amount of pain. Like you're saying, when we try to go 3 steps forward, certain people push us 10 steps back. And we don't want that. We're working towards change. That's why we're saying Black Lives Matter. And then there's always those people that are saying all lives matter, which, if we're really going to get into that, if it's all lives matter, then that should include Black lives. That should include Asian lives. That should include all these different types of things. But you're saying all lives matter. No, you're just saying that you're just trying to add yourself to the conversation. You're trying to act like a victim. No.
Exactly. Oh my goodness, that's actually what I was talking about in those arguments where people really didn't know what they were talking about. They were so often about all lives matter. Here's my logical thought process for this. If you are screaming from the rooftops, oh, all lives matter, and you didn't think up this phrase before you heard Black Lives Matter, which suddenly threatened you so much that you were triggered to go say all lives matter, that means that you are trying to take attention away from Black Lives Matter. You're trying to take something away from people who are actually being victimized in this moment so that you feel included and so that you don't feel like you're a perpetrator of the issue. And in reality, sometimes you just need to suck it up and deal with what's going on. Because if you're saying all lives matter in response to Black Lives Matter or Asian Lives Matter, you're denying the fact that there is a problem. And I know this example is used so often, but if there's a burning house and the rest of the houses on the street are perfectly fine, should the firefighters come and spray water on every single house until they get in the house at the end of the street? Absolutely not. That makes no sense. That makes no sense. So in order to confront the problem properly, we need to eradicate things like all lives matter, because that takes away the idea that you need to actually focus on the problem. If you don't focus on the problem, there's not going to be an actual way to solve it.
You're right. You're right. And I like how you use that symbolism. That was actually a really good thing to bring up, because it's just like, it's so mind-boggling. It's so annoying. It irks me how people are saying these things and they're also not understanding it. Or, it's just a comeback. And then when they say blue lives matter, which I don't really think we should necessarily get too much into that, but that's not a skin color. No, that's a suit. That's a suit. That's a suit.
What profession you go into?
That's a profession yeah. So you could take that off, but we can't take our skin off, nor do we want to, our beautiful melanin. We shouldn't want to take that off. We've had to embrace that, work towards embracing that. It's so hard. I see a lot of different books, and that's why I'm so glad we have yours, to teach about like this boy's heritage and anti-bullying message and and kindness and all these different things. But I've seen like these different books that are talking about, you know, Black girls embracing themselves or Black boys embracing themselves. And then I've even seen them about, you know, Indian, like Hispanic, like a bunch of different things. And so I'm just like, we need to work towards that positive like shift. We need to work towards embracing ourselves. But with having all this societal like this societal obstacles, I guess I'll just say that societal obstacles, it comes back and like it's in our way. It just continues to be in our way. And we're slowly getting past that. But there's so many things being put on top of that and on top of that and on top of that. And then if we're really going to talk about, you know, how racism is integrated in all these different systems, like the policing system, the justice system, the nursing system, with Black women especially, you know, all these different things, it's so terrifying to me because it's just like, we have what started Black Lives Matter and, you know, with like dealing with like Trayvon Martin and all these different things. And, you know, like just being a Black boy wearing his hoodie, walking to the store on the phone with his friend, and he gets killed just because he's Black.
Exactly. And that actually reminds me, a couple of years ago I did an interview and I got asked the question about Black Lives Matter and how I felt about it. And I used the example that I live in a house where my dad is Black, my brother is Black, and sometimes, especially in 2016 when I first heard about Black Lives Matter, I was scared for my dad to walk from the train station to his car late at night. In the winter, it was like December or January, and he was wearing a jacket and he wanted to put his hood on. And I was scared that he wasn't going to make it home because people look at our skin tone and they assume certain things and they have all of these ideas in the back of their head that it makes them do awful things that ruin and take lives. So it's not just arguments on the internet. It's not just saying this and saying that. These are people's lives. These are these are families that are broken apart because a father is taken away from their home. These are families that were planning to save up for their kids' graduation in college, and now they can't do that because there is no more kid. Like, those situations really bring into perspective how this world, especially this country, needs to take a positive step towards progress. And I don't want to take anything away from the progress that we have made because we've come a very long way. Even what you were saying about the being able to empathize with other people and understand where they're coming from. I just did an interview today with an author. Her name is S.K. Ali, and she wrote a book called Saints and Misfits. And this is from the perspective of a teenage girl who's living in a religious Muslim family. And she is coming to terms with her religion. It's a coming of age story. And it also talks about how she grows into herself by the end of the story. She has a traumatic experience at the beginning, and it's really following her journey through that. But one thing I said to Miss Ali was that I truly learned so much about Islam in that book. It is crazy. I'm a Christian. Like, I'm born and raised in a Baptist church. So I have always had a fascination with learning about other religions, and I just want to be able to have educated conversations with other people about them, understand where people are coming from, and not just walk into any situation with ignorance about who I may encounter, you know, just understanding what's going on. And I appreciated how much culture and how much information she put into that book about Islam and the things that you should do and shouldn't do, and the customs that are common practice there. And that just reminded me how important it is to really seek out literature where you are taking someone else's perspective and putting it in front of your face, so that you have no other option but to empathize with the main character, but to look into their world and see how they interact with people from their point of view. And even scientifically, that makes a huge difference in terms of the empathetic bonds that you can make with other people. And I truly believe that if the next generation that's coming up, our age, Gen Z, whatever the next one is, Generation Alpha, Generation Alpha, them, if they're brought up reading books a lot of diverse books where they're able to understand where other people are coming from and feel like they've made a friend in a book character and they're able to relate to the person in real life more that way, the world would be such a different place. Like we would have so much more empathy and so much less violence. And I just wish that that was more common practice and reading wasn't seen as a chore for a lot of teenagers today as well.
And also, I feel like schools really make it into a chore.
Mhm.
That's just another, I guess that's just another thing. But you know, I kind of want to also bring up this other thing because like, you know, we're talking about putting or no, something that actually just kind of you reminded me of. But like we're talking about putting yourself in other people's shoes to see how like their perspective, what they're going through and really empathize with them. And then I'm also thinking about how since we're talking about religion, I've gotten way more into something called the Baha'i faith. Which is essentially just, I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it's dealing with the oneness of the human family, or for anyone listening, it's dealing with the oneness of the human family, believing in that, believing in the oneness of religions, and seeing that we're all a part of the human family. And so, something that I always talk about is like, you know, even science can prove this. You know, there's really only one race, and that's the human race. You know, we just happen to all come from different parts of the world. We happen to have all our different cultures, our different, you know, backgrounds and stuff like that, and our different skin colors. And, you know, based on where you're born, your skin can be darker, your skin can be light, like a bunch of different aspects. But if we're really going to talk about it, we are all only a part of one race, and that's the human race. I've heard people say, you know, take away our skin and just look on the inside. We're all humans. We're all humans, you know? That's what we need to recognize. Because I wouldn't want to hurt someone. And I don't, and I think that, you know, if someone were to hurt me and see how I feel and put them and see like them putting themselves in my situation, in my shoes, let's see how you feel. Would you really want to inflict some sort of pain onto other people? You know? But then it's,
Exactly.
yeah. Oh, sorry. Were you about to add on?
Well,
Exactly.
yeah, I was just gonna say that that relates perfectly to what I was thinking about because even when I first stepped on that bus and that girl said that to me that I was too dark, I really don't. I number one, I know that she was repeating what she hears at home. So I don't completely place blame on her. I majority blame her parents because if that's what she knows, that's all she knows. But secondly, she didn't think about what it was like for me to be in that situation and have absolutely no friends. I mean, everybody else on that bus had attended the same school the year before. I was the only one who wasn't there before. So she knew that I was a new transfer. And if she took the time to understand what it was like for somebody to go to a brand new school with absolutely no friends, if she knew what it was like to look different from most of the kids at the school, since the school was predominantly white, then she would have taken more time to think about the words that she said. And even picture books that show what the first day of school is like for certain kids, like Suubi. Like he introduces himself on the first day of school in front of the class, and the first thing he hears out of his classmate's mouth is jokes about his gap, asking him why it's so wide, making fun of it. Like those kids didn't have the the thinking, the thought process to say, hey, if I were in his situation, what would I want to hear? I want to hear nice things, right? Or if the girl on the bus were thinking about from my situation, I'd want to hear nice things. Like just taking those extra 30 seconds to think about stuff before it comes out of your mouth or think about things before you do certain actions can make the biggest difference.
You're so right. That is so true. It's really true. Just stop yourself in the moment. And you know, actually, this is something that I've noticed I've really had to do just because of the trauma that I went through with my bullies and just like seeing my peers in a different light now. I'm like, I've seen, like, I kind of would just associate everyone at that school with being, you know, negative towards me just because of what those three boys did. And then I started seeing outside of school, like a lot of other peers just thinking that they're going to, you know, hurt me or something like that. Or and then anxiety comes along with that and then paranoia, which I've had to go through years of therapy to break out of that, you know, like the trauma. And so I'm like having to ground myself. I took so Humanity Rising has something called the Spiritual Empowerment Circle, and that's hosted by or that's led by Cheryl as well as a few other Humanity Rising ambassadors. And so Cheryl's really into religion, and she's also really into relaxation. And so she taught us how to ground ourselves. And so whenever I'm feeling that moment of anxiety, and luckily I'm able to recognize that I know I'm not like looking at this situation like for how it actually is. I just kind of have like I stop in the moment, focus on my feet because I know that that's on like on the ground, and then that's kind of how I ground myself. So that's that's how I work towards that feeling comfortable in myself. Tell us about your podcast, The Book Junkie.
So I started the Book Junkie as a way to be creative once COVID started, because the main form of income for Brown Kids Read is our online and pop-up bookshelf. So that means I have a bunch of inventory, several hundred books, and we take those books to events, set up tables. I talk to people about the message of Brown Kids Read, and all the proceeds from the money we make from that event, um, they go towards community events, partnering with schools, and creating campaigns to get kids more excited about reading. So once COVID started, we really were not allowed to go to events anymore. So I knew I needed to turn things digital. And I also recognized that there was a whole untapped audience that I hadn't really been paying that much attention to. And those were listeners or readers between the ages of 12 and 19. So I started the Book Junkie podcast as a way to give teenagers a safe space to express themselves through the lens of diverse literature. And the episode formats come in two formats. The first one is I invite a teenager onto the show and I have them fill out a form about their personality. So there's a lot of different questions. Then I read a book within 2 to 3 days about their personality, and we basically just talk about the plot and the different things that go on throughout the story. But the thing is, the teenager hasn't read the book yet. So my job is to convince them to read the story through relating it to real life events for things they're passionate about. So I've had teenagers come on who were passionate about girls in India having more access to feminine products. So there was an author who had a book that was exactly about that, and that's what the episode was about. There was another one who was passionate about combating police brutality. We talked about the book Dear Martin by Nick Stone. There are a lot of different books out there, and it's not just widening the scope for books that are available to teenagers in the young adult genre, but it's also widening the scope for teenagers who feel like they need someone to relate to, because sometimes it can be hard to listen to podcasts where people are like 20, 30 years older than you, and they're not really on your wavelength at this point in your life. So I wanted the Book Junkie podcast to just feel like a regular conversation between two people, which it is, and just vibe it out, just have a conversation about what's going on in the world. And then the next format is author interviews. So I actually have contacts with the big five publishers, and Scholastic. The ones I talk to the most are Penguin Random House, Scholastic, Simon and Schuster, those ones. And they send me authors that would like to be interviewed by the Book Junkie podcast. And I read their book and ask them interesting questions. So I do a lot of research before I talk to these authors. I watch all of the interviews that are available online on YouTube and in blog posts. And I make it a point to go out of my way to ask them questions that I don't see on those interviews, just so the young generation can get a peek into what the author is really trying to get across with their book and how it can impact our generation as well. So in total, the Book Junkie podcast is definitely for teenagers, but it's also for older people who want to know what's going on with teenagers so that they can help them, whether it be parents, teachers, educators. I actually have a large demographic of my audience who are educators. So I'm glad that they're listening to the podcast so that when they go and talk to their high school students, they know what's going on. So yeah, that's what the Book Junkie podcast is about.
Wow, that's really cool. You got a lot going on, Ssanyu. I know that I am kind of curious about what you want to do after high school, like as far as education wise.
That is awesome. So I know that I want to go to an HBCU. My number one pick overall, 100%, is Howard University. And I even got more excited a couple days ago because I just really looked into their media and journalism major, and I'm just in love with it. So that's my number one pick. But in terms of where I'm going to take Brown Kids Read, I actually plan to partner with whatever campus of the school that I'm going to so that they can donate space to Brown Kids Read so that we can hold the books there and I can continue the nonprofit. I plan to actually start a new project. It's a diverse reading tutoring program so that we can help younger kids be able to build those reading skills so they're able to actually read diverse books and turn that into a partnership with the university so that I have not just more resources, but I have more people who can help out as well. And I would have volunteers in their respective majors. So an accounting major would have to be accounting, graphic design would do graphic design. I just think that it would be a really good partnership. And then I also want to do a talk show while I'm in college as well for teenage entrepreneurs. So those are my plans after high school.
Wow, I like that. I remember, wait, so you've been to Howard before, right? You've toured?
Not yet. So I'm gonna go in June. My schedule is pretty busy this spring. I have a lot of events on the weekends. So the weekends are when I would be able to get down there because I live in New Jersey. So it's 4 hours away. But I do have other options. Hampton is also in the running as well. Spelman too. I'm not just looking at HBCUs, even though it's my number one pick. So Princeton's on the list. I also have NYU and Brown is on there as well.
Wow. Okay. I really can't wait to see. I know so I did go to Howard because I was just touring a bunch of colleges. I actually committed to a college. I committed to the University of Maryland in College Park. So
Nice.
super excited.
My mom was just talking to me about that one today. That's awesome.
Oh, that's funny because like I really am just focused on like psychology. I really want to dive into people's minds. I just kind of naturally start saying that because I really, over the years of like me doing Race to Speak Up and now having my webinar and having my podcast and like talking to people who have gone through trauma, and I've also talked to people who are mental health workers, it's really opened my eyes to things. And it's like it's letting me just kind of know that I want to do something in the mental health field, be a mental health worker and just dive into people's minds and focus in on like ways to cope with things, cope with their results from bullying or cope with their whatever they're going through, or, any type of way to fix whatever they're going through or help them in their situations. It's so interesting to me. So I'm very happy to hear what you're going to be doing. But Ssanyu, this has been a really good conversation. Thank you for joining me today.
Of course. Thank you for having me on. I'm so glad that I got to talk to somebody who's so like minded. And you are such a bright light, honestly. When I saw Race to Speak Up, I was excited because I love seeing other teenagers who are passionate about anti bullying and going out of your way to be kind to others. So thank you for having me on.
And Ssanyu, can you tell us your social media platforms and your website?
Yes, so I actually have three main ones. The first one is Ssanyu Speaks, which is my platform where I help other teenagers start their business from the ground up. And I also help existing teenpreneurs to grow their businesses. So you can find that on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. The next one is Brown Kids Read, which is my whole world of Brown Kids Read, Book Junkie podcast updates, all that. That is Brown Kids Read on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And then there is Share a Smile Books, which is my publishing company where I publish kids and teenagers. I published Suubi Sunny Smile through Share Smile Books, and I'm also publishing my next book, Chi Chi's To Be Grand, through that as well. By the end of this year, there should be 4 books published by both me and other teenage authors, so stay tuned for that. You can check out Share a Smile Books on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And then my website is sanyuspeaks.com and brownkidsread.org.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, because Ssanyu, once I saw your social media and just you in general, I was like, no, I really do want to have Ssanyu on my podcast and just learn about what you're doing. So, but I mean, what you're doing, that positive change, you're showing how you race to speak up in your community and in the world, really. So, thank you. So, yeah, thank you again for joining. And thank you to everyone who's listening. I hope to see you guys at future Race to Speak Up podcast. And buy my first children's anti-bullying book, Devin Speaks Up, also available on my website, or just scan this QR code. I'm so happy to further the anti-bullying message through this book, and I'm glad to have you guys with me. Thank you. If you have any questions about the Race to Speak Up podcast, feel free to contact me at racetospeakup @gmail.com. Make sure to go to my website, www.racetospeakup.com, and follow me at Race to Speak Up on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for future updates on my podcast. Join the Humanity Rising movement. Humanity Rising offers scholarships for students making a difference in the world through service. Visit www.humanityrising.org for more information. And remember to ask yourself this question: how do you race to speak up?